It's just preparing itself. Takes about 30 seconds.
Okay.
And we are live. It's just preparing itself. Takes about 30 seconds.
Okay. Okay, ready? Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30. First item on the agenda, or on the order of business, is the agenda. Are there any amendments or to the agenda as presented?
No, not that I'm aware of.
No? Okay. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I so move.
Okay, thank
Is that
you.
Eric?
Yes.
That was Eric? Okay.
Yes, it was Erica.
Thank you.
All in favor? Okay. Council update, Marnie? I think you're on first.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, after that last meeting when I was kind of taken aback and thinking, oh, I have to provide an update.
Yeah.
Last council meeting, there wasn't a whole bunch that would probably concern CBC, but we went through our council strategic priorities, our 10-year plan. And so a lot of those items remain the same. There wasn't a huge pile of changes going on, right? But just kind of redefining, rehoning. Obviously, we realize that COVID will throw some challenges into some of those things. Could be some delays, but we continue to work away at working away at our list and making sure that we are on track. The other thing that was part of that discussion with council was grants, community grants. So there was a lot of grants that were handed out to a lot of our various organizations. And, we've had that conversation here in the background, just, how many organizations will be looking for some funds as they go forward, right? So we do realize that's going to be a challenge for us. But all in all, those were kind of the real kind of, I think, big issues that might be a part of this discussion. So.
Okay, I think you had two community groups too also. You had one on economic development and the other one
Like
is
for
on.
the task forces, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, we do. We have the Economic Recovery Task Force, which I'm part of, along with Councillor McFadden and Mayor Janung, as well as a good roster of other great community people. And then we have the Social Economic Recovery Task Force, and they do have a survey out. We also had a survey out. But looking at just how COVID has affected our business community, as well as just the social side of things, how things have been for families, I encourage everybody to fill out both, because that's what's going to really guide us as we go forward and how we can best help, how we can best help our community overall. And yeah, I just got out of the Economic Recovery Task Force meeting. So, things are going on in the background. But again, this is a time, if you haven't filled anything out and if you are suffering or know of anybody suffering, please encourage them to fill out those surveys for us.
Okay, I was under the impression that the economic development one was already closed. No?
Yeah, I'd have to go back to see if they've actually closed it off yet altogether, or whether or not you can still provide your input, even if it was closed. And if you wanted to have input and you haven't done it, I mean, just email one of us. I mean, and we can, we can definitely get some questions to you, right? We had good response. We've had great response actually with both surveys. I know that in the first day that the Social Recovery Task Force put theirs out, I think they had well over 160 some survey responses, right? So that's good. So there's been a lot of people willing to sit down and actually provide some feedback, because without the feedback, we don't know. So
Yeah, excellent. So thank you. I see that Morgan is joining us. Do you have anything to add, Morgan? Are you there yet? Looks like he's still connecting. In the meantime, Lyle has a question. Mr. Balmer has a question. Do you not?
Counselor answered my question actually in her presentation. I was just curious about how much can you hear me? I was wondering how much participation had been in the two surveys, and to just comment that what I've heard is that the economic survey was closed, even though people were trying to get some input into them. So I will encourage them to email one of the counselors for the update.
Okay, it looks like we're getting, did Morgan, are you able to get in? I got an email from him. So just give me a second, please.
Hey, can you guys hear and see me?
Yes, we can hear and see you
Okay,
now.
perfect.
Okay, so Ms. Fideko was just giving us the council update. Did you hear it and did you have anything to add?
I did not hear it, but I don't know if I'd have anything to add. I guess, did we talk since we decided about the rec center? Other than that, there hasn't been anything major since then.
That was a meeting before. So I said just in our last meeting, it was like strat priorities, right? 10-year capital plan.
Yeah.
The 10-year plan, what that looks like. There wasn't a whole bunch of changes. I talked a little bit about community grants, right? And how we dole out some money for those and how obviously we're going to have more and more organizations come forward with bigger asks as we go forward. And then just an update on task forces that were going on. But yeah, Lyle, you know what? Let me go back and I will talk to Mr. Corman about maybe perhaps there's an opportunity to open up that survey again for anybody that did miss, even if it's just a few days. You know, if we can gather more data, I mean, it's not going to do us, it's not going to do any bad or harm to what we're looking at, right? It just gives us more information.
Yeah, just to let you know, Ms. Fideko, I actually got a call from the lady from tourism and she did say that it was closed. So I said, oh, I missed my opportunity to give my feedback.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, if there's a way that we could open it up back up again, I don't see the harm in it, right? At least if we have those answers, unless she's asking a lot of those same questions, and that could be that then she's going to record that information down anyways, right? Because I mean, she is supposed to be calling every single business that happens in Cochrane. So I mean, it might be a lot of the same information, but I will double check on that for sure.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The next item is the adoption of the previous minutes. So is there any errors or omission in the previous minutes? No? If so, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Anybody?
timed
Okay.
out.
Would someone move to adopt the minutes as presented? Ms. Fideko, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, and the next item is development permits. So we could have the development officer's report for the month of May 2020. Mr. Stewart?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. For the month of 2020, we issued 11 decisions. 10 of them were approved and one of them was refused. The majority of those decisions were actually made by CPC itself during the May 20th meeting. But just to touch real quickly on a couple of them, one of them was a time extension for some villas in Fireside Phase 5. They're just they're not moving as fast as they can, and due to the conditions of needing to close their permits out in a couple of years, that one was granted a time extension. There was a commercial pylon sign at the Heartland commercial area. And then there was also a variance to a rear yard setback in West Hall Place, which was essentially due to an accessibility ramp for the daycare there, and also a front yard deck variance setback for just a front porch that was about 16 centimeters within the front setback, but the actual garage structure itself was the proper setback. And from June 12th of 2019 to June 12th of 2020 this year, we have we've issued 30 development application decisions since then, or since the start of the year, which is 15 lower than last year, which is a result of COVID and the slightly slower growth and the state of our economy as of right now. And that's the development officer's report.
Okay, so thank you. So does that equate to 50% less? If we had 30 last year, we've got 15, I guess it's.
No, so we had 45 last year and 30
Oh.
this year, so it's 33% less.
Okay. And just a question, usually are these listed inside our package? Is the development officer's report usually listed within the package, Patrice?
Yes, it is, yes.
Okay, so it seems to be missing in this one, so perhaps we'll just have it included in the next one.
No, I got it.
Oh, really? Okay, I just don't have it in the one that I printed off then. My error. Okay. Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Stewart.
No
The
problem.
first development application.
Oh, excuse me. You just get a motion to approve the development officer's report.
Yes. May I have a motion to approve the development officer's report? Ms. Lang, all in favor? Opposed? Carried? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Okay. So if I'm missing anything on my version, just make sure you let me know. So the next thing I have is DP 2020-027.
Yes, Ryan's just going to bring it up on the screen for you guys. Okay. Good evening, members of the Cochrane Planning Commission. This evening, I'm presenting DP 2020-027 for a decision. Next slide, please. This application is for an eating establishment and a drive-through at 40 Fireside Gate in the Fireside community. The subject property is located within the Commercial Residential Mixed Use District, or CR for short. The purpose of the CR district is to facilitate development of the land for mixed commercial residential purposes. Within the district, eating establishments are permitted use, and accessory uses such as drive-throughs are discretionary use. As a result, the application must be presented to the Cochrane Planning Commission for a decision. Next slide, please. The remainder of the commercial site is either operational or under construction, as it was approved under separate development permits. A development permit for an eating establishment and accessory use was previously issued for this location in 2017. However, construction did not start in accordance with the land use bylaw. Therefore, the permit expired and they had to reapply. Next slide, please. This is the proposed site plan. The applicant is proposing a restaurant with 82 seats and a dual access drive-through on the west side of the building with one payment window, 2 pickup windows, and a wider drive-through lane to allow passing, which will limit idling and keep the drive-through line moving. The areas outlined in blue will be developed as part of this application if approved. Next slide, please. The proposed application was reviewed against the town's statutory and non-statutory documents. The proposed development meets pathway 6 within the Cochrane Sustainability Plan, which has a target of a 50% increase to the number of businesses in town by 2029. Within the Municipal Development Plan, the application meets Principle 1, Responsible Growth Management, and Principle 4, Economic Vitality. The development also meets section 8.5.2 subsection 9, as the commercial development will not detract from the downtown area. Within the West Ridge Area Structure Plan, the application meets section 6.2.1, as it will provide another commercial use to the site, which already includes a mix of commercial and residential uses. The proposal also meets section 6.2.2.1, as it is proposing to screen the drive-through from Fireside Gate and adjacent buildings. The proposed development was also designed to complement the existing buildings on the same property through the use of gray stone and brown horizontal siding. Within the neighborhood plan, the intent of the commercial area is to provide residents with local commercial services that they can walk to and gather at. The proposed development will provide these services while also connecting the existing sidewalks and walkways, which will allow residents to move safely throughout the site. Next slide, please. Section 19.1.2 of the Land Use Bylaw states that all commercial developments shall comply with the Western Heritage Design Guidelines. Administration has reviewed the proposed elevation and determined that the building includes the following heritage elements: stone base wainscoting, parapets, upper cornicing, and gooseneck lighting. Next slide, please. The next two slides will show the proposed elevations for the new commercial building. The image on the top of this screen is the east elevation, which will face towards Highway 22. The image on the bottom of the screen is the north elevation, which will face towards the parking lot. Next slide, please. The western elevation is located on the top of this screen, and the southern elevation, which will face towards Fireside Gate, is on the bottom. Next slide, please. The proposed development meets the land use bylaw requirements for the following: building height, as they're only proposing 1 story; parking stalls, as the site exceeds the minimum number of parking stalls required; building setbacks; screening and garbage storage, as an enclosed garbage room is proposed; and landscaping. Next slide, please. Landscaping for the whole commercial site was originally approved under DP 2015-165. However, the landscaping plan has been revised to accommodate the new building design and drive-through. As landscaping was approved under separate development permits, some of the landscaping already exists and will be protected during construction. The applicant is proposing new trees and shrubs around the drive-through and crosswalk to minimize the impact to surrounding public spaces and properties. A total of 18 trees and 186 shrubs will be located around the proposed eating establishment and drive-through once complete. Next slide, please. To help screen the proposed drive-through from Fireside Gate, the applicant is proposing a 1.2 meter high fence along the south side of the drive-through, in addition to the proposed landscaping. A photo of the proposed fence is provided in the top left corner of the slide. The image on the bottom of the slide depicts the view of the drive-through from Fireside Gate once the fence is built and the landscaping is planted. Next slide, please. These are some photos of the current site taken from different locations along Fireside Gate. The photo on the left is taken from the southwest corner, and the photo on the right is taken from the southeast corner near the Shell station. Next slide, please. The photo on the left of this slide is of the subject property from the existing parking area, and the photo on the right is of some other commercial buildings on the site. Next slide, please. The proposed development meets the regulations within the land use bylaw, and it aligns with town planning policies within the applicable statutory and non-statutory documents. Also, no concerns were raised during circulation nor during the site visit. Next slide, please. As a result, administration is recommending option 1 in the report, that the Cochrane Planning Commission approve the application for an eating establishment and accessory use of drive-through with the noted conditions of approval and advisory notes in the report. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. So I remember this application coming before, and there was quite a bit of discussion with respect to the width of the sidewalks in order to accommodate wheelchairs because of its proximity to the seniors' residence. So do the sidewalks, I'm just thinking of that landscaping slide, did the sidewalks, did they remain? I believe that we landed on making the sidewalks a bit wider there in order to accommodate people pushing wheelchairs. And did they stay, or has it been changed from the previous development permit?
Through the chair, the pathway is currently existing on site and was built to the wider width.
Okay, thank you. Another question. So I know we talked about the heritage guidelines a lot during that presentation and the original one. One question I have is the signs now that are on it. Is the proposal to be backlit? Are they coming forward with another application, or what is the thought with respect to the signs?
To the chair, the signs on the building are exempted from this application, but the applicant is planning to come forward with an application shortly.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. I see that there's, let me see. Somebody here had questions.
That was me.
Ah, Heather. Heather.
I was just reviewing today the layout of everything and that double drive-through situation, and the fact that when cars come into the drive-through, they stop, they make the order, and there's a crosswalk that goes in front of that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the way I've seen all this, but on that side, on the opposite side, there's a crosswalk, and then there's a stop bar and signage for pedestrians, but I didn't see an allocation for any kind of signage on the drive-through side, like where cars are coming in. That crosswalk, there wasn't anything on there about pedestrians or kind of a right-of-way kind of thing. Obviously, we know pedestrians have the right-of-way, but I think signage would be a better option as far as protecting.
Yeah, could we perhaps go back to that slide? So again, I think the concern on the original development application was that individuals coming from the seniors residence would have proper access to be able to get into McDonald's.
Right. What I'm
So-
talking about is the other side. If go back to the
Not that
one
one.
more slide up,
So-
I think. No, one more
so
slide up,
if-
like the original.
If
Sorry.
I may, Ryan, there's a detailed site plan after the thank you slide that it's very overwhelming, but it
Yeah,
has a
no,
lot
no,
more words to
it's-
it.
Okay.
So
So on this site plan to the left where the cars enter the drive-through, and then there's that crosswalk. And
Oh, I
then
see.
because they enter the drive-through, it looks like there's actually four places to order your food, but in between there's a crosswalk. And from what we were sent, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see anywhere where there was a sign saying this is a crosswalk. Pedestrians, that kind of thing on that side. You do see it on the other side when they're coming to exit. There's a stop bar and a pedestrian signage, but there's not one on here. And
So-
and there may even be something, I've never seen a drive-through where you could pass other cars. So from a safety perspective, just, do they have something that shows that those lanes there are only designated for drive-through and not for a pass-through of other cars?
So through the chair, to answer your first question about signage, you are correct. There's only a stop bar and a stop for pedestrian sign at the end of the drive-through, not at the beginning. I believe the rationale is because the crossing is more visible at the entrance, so people can see the pedestrians crossing. But if it is a concern of CPC, we can get them to add that to the plans. And then to your second question about the passing, are you specifically asking about the drive-through lane itself? Like
Yeah.
just the passing lane within the drive-through?
The passing, so only one, so the way I'm looking at it, so passing can only happen after the cash booth?
Correct. So this is designed because they have one location for payment and two locations for pickups. So sometimes if there's a very quick order, they will be sent to the first window so they can pass the person in the present booth, I think is what they call it on this slide. So it's just a really short area where you can pass someone. It's just to manage the two pickup windows to keep the line moving.
Okay,
So it's
it
only
can't
in
be
that small
accessed
location.
Okay, so it can't be accessed by cars coming into McDonald's and
Correct.
mistake and get in there and whatever. Okay.
Correct. You have to go through the ordering station and then through the loop, and then it widens at the south end of this
Okay.
building.
And then does it continue all the way around?
No,
Like
it
two car lengths
stops.
Or just one?
It gets reduced down in size. So the widest point, let me just get the measurements for you here. It's the widest is 6 meters. And then it gets narrowed down to 4.2 meters on the eastern side of the building. So it goes from 2 lanes to order, 1 lane to go around the curve, a wide lane for the pickups, and then narrowed again to get to 1 lane to get out.
Okay. Okay. That's quite the drive-through. I guess I would like to suggest that we add something about the pedestrian crosswalk that's right there. Being as this is the first fast food stop for people coming from the highway. We could have a lot of people who are not familiar with the area, and I just think it'd be better to have some signage there. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. I believe that Mr. Nagel has questions. Mr. Nagel? Oh, he's having computer issues at the moment. Ms. Sadeko, you had a comment?
Yeah, no, I thought she was talking about when they first come in, and I'm like, oh, they're just merging in together. But yeah, I know what she's talking about now. And all that is going to be so that, people who have quick orders, that they can speed it up, right? So that they're not necessarily having to park a bunch of people, while they wait for their orders, right? So it's just in line to make sure that things are running efficiently. And you know what? I think people will figure it out fairly quickly. It's actually not a bad idea for them to be able to offer a service like that, right? Where somebody's just getting a coffee, they aren't waiting for to have, paper given to them, right? So it's just for efficiency use. I guess my only concern would be traffic impact. Have we updated this? What is the traffic impact going to look like? And obviously this is going to be a busy area, so.
So through the chair, a traffic impact assessment was not required for this development since it is just local traffic on the site itself. But there is a traffic impact assessment for the whole neighborhood that was felt like this would not impact that.
And that's recent, that information was recent, or like 3-4 years ago?
So at the beginning of this application, I asked if one was needed for this one, and the answer was no. There wasn't going to be a significant impact.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I believe,
I'm fixed.
that Mr. Nagel's fixed.
Sorry. I couldn't figure out I couldn't find the unmute button on Zoom. So I'm looking at these maps, and like, I'm pretty concerned that this, first of all, I really think that this McDonald's is a great idea. It's going to be very well utilized up in this area by both Fireside residents and people on the highway. But I look at this parking lot and like, I think it's kind of going to be chaos. And I think a lot of it is honestly like our own design based on what we've done with all these boulevards all over the place. Do we have any control over any of the boulevards as part of this application? I do see there's like one corner one that's kind of highlighted in this black bold, and then there's the other one, basically two. I see 2 boulevards on the exit of the drive-through. Are those the only boulevards that are part of this application?
So through the chair, most of this site is currently existing and built.
Right.
So what's shown on the screen right now is pretty much everything that's going to be built. There is an existing, Ryan, do you mind going to slide number 4?
You're gonna have to stop me, Amanda. I don't see the slide numbers.
Keep
on it.
going. It says site plan on the top. It's at the beginning, right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so currently everything on the south end is will have to be built.
Mhm.
That little semicircle, I guess, I don't know, in the middle there, that is currently built as well, but
Oh.
they are amending it. So they're gonna make it a bit wider to allow for proper turning radiuses. But that does exist currently on site.
Because so, like, is there any way? Is it even in the realm of possibility that the exit could be onto the lot where the gas station and the Tim Hortons is, or does the exit have to be on this lot? Because when I look at this, you got people turning in, driving through parking spaces where people could potentially be trying to back out, going through 2 crosswalks to get into the drive-through, where it's like a double lane drive-through, so you have to maneuver into the appropriate lane. And then in the exact same area, you've got people trying to leave the drive-through. And it's like these up in this Fireside shopping area, like it's already pretty squishy when you run into the pharmacy or whatever. So I just like I want to see this McDonald's, but I think this is gonna be like really squishy and wild, to be honest. I don't know what to do. Does anybody have any ideas on how to improve it?
Well, I
These
know,
concerns.
I know that rather than like putting them back through where everyone goes into the drive-through, if they went straight northeast, if you go out that way, you can come out beside the
Mhm.
shell there too, or you can go out the back way and back down to that main area that has the circle.
Mm-hmm. Could we send them direct to that parking lot, the gas station parking lot?
So through the chair, if that was the direction that CPC wants to take, then the landowners would have to reach out to the landowners of the Shell station and see if it's even possible. But I do know that the Shell station has some tanks of some sort on that side of their site. So I think that could create some complications and would ultimately result in site changes to the Shell site, and they would then have to go through a development permit process as well. So I'm not sure if that is something they would agree with.
So just to clarify, that's not what I was proposing. I'm just saying when people drive out, it's actually easier if they go straight north instead of going west to leave the drive-through. All that infrastructure already exists.
Right. Yeah, I know. I
Right.
just don't know if
And-
people are gonna do that.
So,
Yeah.
and through the chair as well, like Erica said, the whole site exists, and there is a private roadway on the north end of this, to the north of this picture, which will take you to Fireside Boulevard.
So a question I have, Amanda, is how are people, we can see the 2 cars entering the double lane. How are they getting there? So how are they getting there from, where is the road?
So
Are they going to have to do a hairpin turn to get in, or where are they coming from?
to the chair, the entrance from Fireside Gate is to the west of Building 3 there, where Ryan's cursor is.
Okay, that's over
So
there.
they could enter
Okay.
through there and then go to the right, or they could go
Oh, I
in
see.
from the north, because there is going to be that private road up there as well.
Okay, so to the circle, and then you see a number of little squares there. What are those little squares?
Those
road
would
square.
indicate pedestrian crossings.
Oh, okay, all right. So I was thinking that that was parking. So they're going to come in through there and around to get into there.
Correct.
And I
Just
don't know
interject.
if those
Sorry.
vehicles are actually to scale. Like in my experience, when we see these drawings, the vehicles are always nice and petite. But like if you put my truck in there, it's probably like 3 times the size of one of those cars. Anyways, sorry, I kind of interrupted. I'll mute myself.
So Amanda, where do they see the semis that are coming to deliver the food to McDonald's? Where do they see them? Where are deliveries for product?
Through the chair, the loading zone is right where Ryan's cursor is, right there, that hatched out area. That's the loading zone there, which is located in front of the enclosed garbage room.
Okay, all right. I believe Heather has a comment and then Marnie.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that on this same slide, customers can come in off of Fireside Gate through that entrance that you guys were just talking about to that circle, take that right and go in. People are probably more likely to, if they utilize the drive-through, to go up to that other boulevard to exit the area, because if you go back to that circle and you come back to Fireside, you can't turn left. You would have to turn right, go back all the way down, go back and down another traffic circle, and then exit. So I think that, you know, the flow of that drive-through is probably as good as it could get, considering where people can actually access and exit the whole area. Like the residents would likely come up that back boulevard, because that back, what's it say, existing shared Broadway? Yeah, they would come up there. And people who were wanting to exit the complex would use that as well. So yeah, just a comment about the area and the way traffic kind of flows around here. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Ms. Federico, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, I know that you said that, you know, there wasn't a traffic assessment needed for the actual lot itself, but is that something that we could take a look at prior to this getting approved? I mean, I'm not sure who gets to decide that, if it's a provincial or if it's something in our own bylaws, I don't know, but obviously we all have concerns about how this flow is going to go within that area, and whether or not what that total impact is going to be. So I'm not sure if it's something that we can kind of push towards to find out what the flow is going to be like, to make sure that safety is our first concern. And I do agree with Morgan that he is right, that when we see plans like this, yeah, it all looks good on paper until you're actually in it. And then you see people, you're right, trying to back up out of stalls, and people are frustrated. And the last thing we need to do is build something yet again that I think the people at Cochrane go, oh God, where was the planning or the thought behind this, right? So if we can take a look at what that's actually going to look like prior to giving them approval, that's where I would probably want to stand.
It's Ryan here. Through the chair, if I could try and address Councilor Fideco's comment related to traffic impact. When the original development permit came in for the entire commercial area, a traffic impact assessment was provided to the town and also to Alberta Transportation due to its proximity to the highway. Through that impact assessment, the uses of the commercial area were generalized, but also fairly well known. So they take a look at different types of retail, and that's based on square footage, as well as eating establishments. And because this area was always kind of seen as a drive-through eating establishment, it was accounted for back in that original traffic impact assessment.
Okay, I mean, did that include a drive-through that have multiple lanes though? Because again, now you're doubling the amount of people that can get through there, right? So, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. It's just, you know, to me, it could be, I guess, identified as a drive-through, but yet that could be something that's like the KFC, where, you know, it's a much slower process, but a McDonald's is busy, and we all know that. So, you know, to kind of generalize them makes me a whole lot nervous, actually, and especially when you have multiple lanes going there. So,
yeah, just through the chair to respond to that. So the traffic impact assessments essentially are looking at the impact onto the public roadways. Within the internal site, the queuing for the drive-through isn't really considered through the traffic impact assessment, because it's not expected to spill out onto the public roads like we saw in the past with the coffee shop on West Side Drive before they twinned their drive. The drive-throughs actually helps relieve the queuing from these types of facilities.
gotcha. So if we wanted to make any changes to the design now, that's up to us, really. essentially as a municipality. Like it's going to have nothing to do with the actual traffic, the traffic assessment then.
Through the chair, that's correct, yeah.
And sorry, just if I could add as well, to help with the flow of the drive-through, in addition to those dual accesses like Ryan mentioned, that is also why they widened the lane in the pickup area to keep people moving and to go to get their food quickly and then to return to their day, to not hold up traffic on the site.
Yeah, I think it's just the access of how to get out of there so that you aren't cutting back against parking stalls, because I agree that's going to be a nightmare. I mean, if we can have them get out and it's not going to impact anybody else, it's just a free flow to get out, then I would see no issue, right? But if you're having to start to cut across things, that makes things difficult.
So through the chair, the applicant is proposing that the exits be to the north of the site to avoid the congestion onto Fireside Gate, or possible congestion, so that they go to the north and then out to the west and then back down to the big traffic circle in Fireside Gate and then out of the community.
Okay, yeah, it's still better. It's just, I think it's more the internal stuff that I have a problem with, right? Just internal in that lot. It looks tight and you're going to have a lot of people trying to flow through there. So I just want to eliminate as many bad comments as what we're going to hear as we go forward.
Sorry, just one more comment to add. Also, the reason why they did the dual access ordering lanes is to reduce the stacking of vehicles on the site itself. So to get people into the drive-through quickly and not backed up on the site.
Yeah, fair enough. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So a question, Amanda, the second smaller circle, what can you remind me what, or not circle, but whatever shape that is, what is that indicative of, that piece there?
So through the chair, that is just a small alteration that they're proposing to the site. Currently, there is a landscaped area there, and they're just going to widen it to the north a little bit and remove one of the stalls to help with proper turning radiuses and movement of the site.
So are they talking about, sorry, just my own clarification, are they talking about removing that?
No, they're expanding it. They're making it bigger. So right where Ryan's cursor is, you can see kind of a dotted line there.
Yeah.
That's where there is currently a parking stall. And they're proposing to remove that so that it's not impacted by the exit of the drive-through and to allow proper movement. So it's just going to become a bigger landscaped area.
Okay, I'm just wondering, would there be any alternative to where you see, if you think that that's the shape of a boot, you know, like a Christmas stocking, so to speak, and you cut off the bottom, and if people came out and then drove, see where the exit waste and cycle is, and drove down that road and back out the circle, would that might be more make the congestion less?
And that people exiting the drive-through can exit that way as well. They can go to the north and then down that private road, or they can cut across this commercial site and then back down to Fireside Gate. They can take both exits, whatever their preference is.
Well, I'm just wondering if actually, and I'm not one for making green space smaller, but in this case, I'm just wondering if making the boot a bit smaller might allow a little bit more flow between the areas and less constrain them down at where they're coming out.
So,
I think what we're all kind of grappling with is that it appears a bit squishy. We want to see it go. How do we make it a little less squishy?
So to the chair, if I can just talk again about that little area. So there's a solid line that's curved, and then there's a dotted line that's curved as well. So that solid line is what it's going to be, and that dotted line is what it is currently. So they're actually reducing the size of it in the driving aisle so that there's more space for movement in vehicles in that area.
Okay, thank you. So, Lyle, did you have, Mr. Ballmer, did you have any questions, comments?
More of a comment, partly in support of Ms. Moore's comment around the entrance there and the crosswalk on the left-hand side, the west side of this property. I understand that the crosswalk is going to line up with the crosswalk south of the traffic circle. That makes sense, but I have this vision. I know what those drive-throughs are like. We've all seen them. They've usually got a lot of signs at the ordering stations, advertising different products, different specials. They've got the speaker walls. And I can envision a child walking from west to east across that crosswalk, a driver exiting the east-hand lane being blocked from view of the child by the order board. Yeah, right there where the cursor is. And they're having a risk of a incident there. So all I would ask them, there's many things about this proposal I actually like. I like some of the design features. I like the fact that they've tried to do some Western heritage components to it, but if they would just give close examination to that little crosswalk, will the driver in the east-hand lane in the northeast order station, will he be able to, or she be able to see somebody walking across, a child running away from mom or dad because they're excited to get to McDonald's for their treat? And that's about the only comment I have. I kind of support the rest of the concerns also that Ms. Lang had about exiting out of this. If we can encourage at this at the exit point where the second crosswalk is, there's a kind of a gentle left turn there. If we can encourage that traffic flow to go forward and to gain that road to the north of this property as quickly as possible, we'll prevent traffic entering out back onto the road, having to turn right and then make the traffic circle from there. So those are my only comments.
Okay. All right, and do we have any other comments?
I got a comment.
Morgan or Mr. Nagel? Sorry.
So one of the benefits of us working on our computers is I can play around with drawings on my computer. So I've been drawing something while we've been working. 1 second. I'm going to upload it in Zoom. What if we turned the whole building 90 degrees? I'll show you. Just 1 sec. And I mean, like, this is a pretty radical change, so feel free to tell me I'm being stupid. Okay, I just put a picture in Zoom. Can you guys all see? Can you guys see that?
No.
You know, Morgan, you'll have to share the screen to make sure that we all see it. And I think the current owner of the screen is going to have to relinquish claim to it.
Through the chair, yeah. It's actually, Councilor Nagel posted it in the chat, so you should be able to just click on the download button in the chat to
Yeah,
see.
but what I tried to describe what I'm talking about, if we rotated all of the McDonald's 90 degrees and then ran vehicles entering on the south side closest to Fireside Gate, and then they exited straight northbound where that boulevard is and over top of what is currently parking, and then turned right out of there. I mean, I'm not really a planner, so there's probably some sort of consideration here I'm not thinking about, but this is the best idea I can come up with looking at this thing.
Yeah, and I totally get what you're saying and spatially can see it. There is an elevation change there, and the fact that all that infrastructure and concrete that is not in the blue outline is existing. So they'd have to rip up everything and dig down to do what you're proposing is the only major thing I see offhand.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if people liked my idea, I would ask if it would be possible to send it away for some more consideration and come back. But if you guys don't like it, then that's the end of the discussion, I guess.
Through the chair to just add a comment on the kind of the 90-degree turn that Councilor Nagel is suggesting. I personally foresee some challenges with the loading area for some of the semis to provide product to the store. The reason that the loading area is where it is on their plan, is so that the truck can come in one way and leave another. It doesn't have to try and maneuver in what is somewhat of a dead end type area, as well as utilize the drive-through.
So if I could just add to Ryan, so all the existing infrastructure was built under a previous DP that did consider proper vehicle movement throughout this site and has the proper turning radiuses for those vehicles. So if it is decided that they look at moving the location of the building, that does change the majority of the site and how it operates. And most of the, and pretty much all the existing infrastructure there.
So then a question I have, Amanda, is human nature being human nature. I can see that you have people coming out the exit and then turning to the right and going up and around and back to the traffic circle, or kind of cutting across. Which do you think the main flow of traffic will be?
Honestly, I'm not sure which the main, what people would mostly use. Me personally, I would probably go to the north and then to the west on that shared private road. That's me personally, but I don't know what other people would do. But the applicant is proposing two options to people to help with the movement of the site.
Okay. All right. So are there any other questions and comments? Doesn't look like it. Are we at the point where someone is willing to put forth a motion?
Madam Chair, I just have one more comment, and I will start by let me make the comment. Somebody can put the motion forward. The only other thing that I can think about is that the existing businesses along that street front are rather attractive. I think the one to the west has a patio dining, and I'm not all that fond about the retaining wall between the drive-through and the sidewalk to walk by, because you can see the top of the cars. So you can imagine if you put Councillor Nagel's truck through there, you'll see his tires, right? So the only thing I would ask them to do too is, can they look at putting a taller, more attractive wall that would disguise all the vehicles, so you wouldn't be walking on the street and looking at vehicles going through the drive-through.
Okay, and on which side is that? Is that on the, where they're entering the dual lane? Mr. Balmer, is that?
It's the east-west side of, it's the south side of the business itself, and it's the east-west runner, the road. And as people are walking down the sidewalk, they'll be able to look to their left or their right, depending on their direction, and see all these cars lined up, right? I'm just trying to keep the image. Those other businesses are rather attractive, and as I said, one of them's got a patio restaurant or patio deck, I believe, out there, and the landscaping, and then you walk suddenly to a fence with car tops going by. It just changes the whole mood. There it is. Yeah, that's it on the top right hand side there.
So through the chair to Mr. Balmer, the applicant is proposing a perforated metal fence that is 1.2 meters, but they are also proposing a bunch of landscaping in front of that. So there will be the sidewalk, landscaping, the fence, and then the drive-through. So there is going to be more screening, and the landscaping will provide that visual buffer in front of the fence.
How long will
So
it take?
people from Fireside will first see people looking at it from Fireside Gate will first see the landscaping, then a bit of the fence, and then the drive-through and the building.
Thank you.
So would there be a possibility or any benefit, I suppose, in having the fencing a little higher, as you can still see in the picture, on the top left-hand corner that you can still see the top of the vehicle, and that may be a car. So a truck may be much higher. Would there be any benefit in making the screening taller?
To the chair, so the fence is 1.2 meters in height. So if CPC would like to, I believe so, yes. 1.2,
Yeah, so
yes, about 4 feet.
so if we could suggest 6 feet, because there is a, I think what Mr. Balmer is referring to, please correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a patio just on the other side of the road. The people are sitting on the patio and looking out. Is that correct, Mr. Balmer?
Yeah, there is a patio out there, but they won't be able to look out at the cars because they've got the same view. They both all looking south, right? So they'll be parallel with that view. I'm just thinking as you're walking down the street for the residents of Fireside, that you'll be walking by some rather attractive buildings and some street side cafe type atmosphere, and then suddenly you're looking at a drive-through. It's, for me, it's not the end of the world. If they could increase the height, or as Amanda has said, they do have that landscaping there. I'd like to see it higher. It's not the end of the world for me.
Okay, so I think that we have a couple options. It sounds like we're all in favor of going ahead with perhaps a couple of additions, and that's to add a crossbar or well-signed crossbar on the entry for pedestrians. And if other members are in alignment and want to increase the height of that screening, then that's another option. But I put it to you for someone to put a motion forward.
I move to approve option 1 with the additional conditions of pedestrian signage at the entrance of the drive-through and the addition of or the replacement of the 4-foot fence with a 6-foot fence.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Any additional comments or discussion with respect to the motion that's been put forward with the suggested additions? Mr. Nagel?
Just a quick comment to explain how I'm going to be voting, but I'm probably going to vote against this. I think it's a really good idea. I think you guys have recommended a few good changes, but I get stressed out already every time I go into this Fireside parking lot, and I just want to see some sort of plan that makes me feel more comfortable with the traffic flow in order to get my support for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nagel. Okay, anybody else? Okay, if there's no further discussion or questions, I just want to double check before we move forward. We have an option on the floor to approve with the addition of adding a crossbar as to define the pedestrian on the entrance and to increase the size of the screening from 4 foot to 6 foot. Okay. So with those, can we have a vote? All in favor? I can't see anybody. Mr. Balmer, Heather. There we go. Erica, Marnie? Can't hear you. Marnie?
I'm against.
You're against?
Yeah. For many of the same reasons that Councillor Nagel just pointed out. I think that we aren't really addressing anything. It's going to be squishy in there, and so I don't like how the flow is going to go, and even more so that it seems that we can't seem to really do much about it. So yeah, I will be voting in favor.
Okay. So Mr. Daco's against, Mr. Nagel's against, Mr. Balmer is for, Ms. Moore is for, Kara is for, okay. And am I missing somebody? 2, 3, okay. Is carried with 2 opposed.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Thank
The
you.
next- The next development application is 2020-009. West signage on number 2 West Side Drive.
All right, just give me 2 minutes. I just got kicked out of the server.
And if I could just interrupt for a minute too, I've got kicked out of mine too, and I'm having a really hard time connecting, so I'm no longer able to view the agenda or the reports, but I'll just keep trying to get connected here.
Not sure that's gonna work, Patrice. I think they're doing maintenance on the server tonight, which
I
means
wondered, it's kind of
none of
saying
us
that
might be able to get back in at this point.
it says, yeah, error, timeout was reached, so,
That's what mine says as well.
yeah, oh boy. Oh boy, okay, so,
What does that mean for you, Patrice?
well, I won't be able to follow along as much as I would like to, because I'm attending the Zoom meeting with my iPad, but I'm using my work computer to take my notes and to view the agenda and all the staff reports.
I can email you
So-
the reports. Hold
It's Ryan here. I think part of the challenge is all the presentations are on the town's network, and so they're not accessible due to the failed connections right now.
Well, if I could make a suggestion again, I made this last meeting too. We've all seen the reports and we've read it. We should have, I noticed Miss Cara is sitting in her car, so you may not have them in front of you, but unless you got a printer in your glove box or something, but can we proceed with just knowing what they are, asking questions as we get to them, working off of the paper copies?
I think legislatively, I don't have the printed copies, so I'm going by the presentations by the development officers.
I can present mine. I actually emailed it, so I just logged in through a different avenue. So I think I'm good to present my 2 applications.
Okay.
Let's roll.
All righty. Just let me get it set up. I've got 2 computers here going.
Sorry, I just got logged back into VDI, so people's might start kicking in here soon. I don't know.
Thanks, Amanda. All right, are we good? Everybody can see?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Tonight I will be presenting the report for DP 2020-009 for a backlit freestanding sign. An application has been received for the property at 2 West Side Drive located in the Highway Commercial District, where backlit signs are a discretionary use and freestanding signs are listed as a permitted use. In July 2018, DP 2017-102 was approved for automotive sales and repair, and in February 2020, CPC approved 4 backlit fascia signs on the commercial building. The applicant is now applying for a backlit freestanding sign along West Rock Road. The land use bylaw defines backlit signs as a sign type that is illuminated from the rear of the sign face. The site plan shows the location of the freestanding sign proposed along the southeast corner of the property along West Rock Road. The lumens for the backlit sign is 5,048, below the maximum 6,000 lumens set out in the land use bylaw. The backlit lighting does provide for dimmers, and should CPC approve the application, this would be a condition of approval. When considering surrounding uses, the majority are highway commercial zoned properties. There are residential uses to the east across the highway where there is a berm and a school site, and the closest residence is set back 225 meters away from the proposed sign. Site lighting on the property includes 20 light standards, 12 wall-mounted lights, 4 inset lights under the Chevrolet Buick GMC entry features, 7 decorative light standards, and 4 backlit signs to the east elevation. The freestanding sign is along the south edge of the property, directly facing the off-leash dog park and Highway 22, and to the east, the skate park to the south. The map before you shows the surrounding land uses. The freestanding sign meets the maximum sign height and maximum sign area. The stone-clad base does add bulk to the lower portion of the sign. However, the sign is still a traditional pylon style sign. The freestanding sign does meet the minimum setback from the property line. However, it does not meet the expected freestanding design materials and coloring. Colors are complementary to the building, and the sign does not meet the Western Heritage Design Guidelines or expectations. Administration has circulated the application to internal departments and external agencies for comments. There are no major concerns regarding the application. Therefore, administration is recommending option 1, that the Cochrane Planning Commission approve development permit 2020-009 for a backlit freestanding sign at lot 29, block 11, plan 181-1077 at 2 West Side Drive, subject to the following conditions listed in your report. That concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cosby. Okay, so I'm just checking in the chat box here. Does anybody have any questions or comments for discussion? Mr. Balmer?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So thanks for the presentation. I do have some questions. One, this applicant did not meet any of the Western Heritage Design Guidelines, even though this is going to be a fairly prominent business as people are heading north-south on 22. Is that accurate?
Yes. And it's more to do with the base of the sign, that it's more designed as a pylon sign than basically kind of like a block style sign. Let me just go back to the shared screen here. Oh, I don't have it here.
And while you're looking that up, what was the number of signs of, that site already has 4 backlit signs on the building itself, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And they're looking for 1 or 2 more freestanding signs.
Right now, this application was to go to CPC in May, and we pulled it last minute. So we've been working hard with the applicant for the freestanding signs. So the original application was to have 2 freestanding signs, and planning was not going to be in support of that application. So the applicant has decided that they would remove the 1 freestanding sign along West Side Drive and just apply for the 1 on West Rock Drive.
And
So
what about
1 freestanding sign is being proposed.
Okay. What about the hoods over the lights?
I don't believe there's hoods over the lights being proposed.
And there is, I heard you say that it's 220 meters from the residence to the east across the road. There is a berm there. I know all of that. But the people's backyards will be looking right into that freestanding sign, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's set back from like 225 meters from the property. So the Western Heritage Design Guidelines, just to mention, does support some backlit signs in some areas. So I mean, this can be considered, supported through the Western Heritage Design Guidelines. What isn't, how it doesn't meet that is just basically the aesthetics of the sign. We would have liked to have seen probably maybe a different design base on the bottom of the sign, but and the applicant did try to comply with that as far as putting stone and stuff at the base of the sign.
So I agree with everything you've said. However, I would contest that the Western Heritage Design, the backlit sign bylaw does talk about residents being impacted. And I guess I'm only one vote, but my view is that the residents to the east of the sign will be impacted. The second concern I have is that every backlit sign that's freestanding that we put up creates a totally different image of Cochrane. So for those two reasons, I will struggle with this one.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Ms. Moore, I believe you have comments.
Yeah, I think we had some discussion when we were talking about their original 4 signs that we were going to allow on the building and everything as to what was actually necessary. And so, like, the point of signage is to attract customers who wouldn't otherwise know what their business is or the access to their business, I think. And I think that this kind of falls into those guidelines of, is it really necessary? I mean, do people driving up the 22 not know that that's a dealership and not know from the signs that are already on the building that are highly elevated who the dealership is? So I don't see how this sign is going to enhance their business. So that combined with the fact that there are residential areas that will be affected by that. We got 600 feet is not that far for a big sign like that that's illuminated. I'm going to have a real hard time with this one as well. I kind of sit with Lyle on this. I don't think they're going to sell, an ample amount more of cars to justify the way the sign looks coming into our town and how it could affect the residents. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. Ms. Fedeko.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everybody else's comments. I won't vote in favor of this due to the closeness of the residents. Also, I mean, there's a very big difference when you're on Auto Row there, and everybody had the option to go up to Auto Row, but these guys are in town. And so, you know what, I think that changes the complete ruling for me because of the fact that when you enter into Auto Row, there's no real residents that are totally impacted sitting right there. And also, we just spent a huge amount of time discussing Western heritage design and what that looks like. And then yet this one, it's like, well, it doesn't meet it on the bottom. I don't care if it's the bottom or the top, but if we're kind of looking at this as a community as being something that is important to our community, then I want to make sure that it supports, what we've not only just discussed, but even the original plans, that it doesn't even fall, it doesn't pass the sniff test past, even our own planning department when it comes to meeting that design part. So I just, I won't vote in favor for right now. And I'm certainly not going to vote for a backlit sign to go right there. I just think there is no need. It is not going to add to their business. Everybody knows what they are. And we've also granted them a number of signs already that are already backlit. I don't think we need to add more.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fedeko. Comments by Ms. Lang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Danica, was it ever discussed to have this sign and have it not be lit? Now because we did that with Toyota, is that we recommended one of their 3 signs not be lit. Was there a discussion with them about that?
I believe the applicant would be prepared to have it non-illuminated if the backlit was the issue with the freestanding sign.
Okay, just for awareness for people, my husband's worked for GM, so I actually know like the branding reason behind having that sign is that it tells people what brands of GM that they have, and that's part of a bunch of agreements on their sales agreements and stuff. So I know they're never going to back down on not having that sign, but if we could send it back and say, yeah, we'll approve it if it's not backlit, that's where I would stand.
So through the chair, Erica is right. I actually have heard that it is a condition of the GM dealership upon opening that they have to have a freestanding sign there. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lang. So a question I would have, and Ms. Fedeko is right, we've just been presented with the guidelines for the heritage guidelines, and that's on one of the routes that would be under the under the direction of the heritage guidelines. So was there even any discussion with respect to them as to a payment in lieu for not meeting the Western Heritage guidelines? Like on top of it being backlit, but also some payment in lieu for the fact that they're not meeting the Western guidelines, so that we can use the money someplace in order to make some connectivity with respect to the guidelines.
So to the chair, there's nothing in the Western Heritage Design Guidelines currently right now, or in a policy, that we could go to the applicant for them to pay cash in lieu.
And is that a timing issue because the Western Heritage Guidelines have not been presented and ratified, or?
They have not been accepted by council as of yet, so they're not a policy that we can look towards to do that. Right now, it's still in the in the planning stages of moving that document forward.
So it's interesting. I'm not too sure that I know that they're able to build that because of things being to build there, because of things being in transition and the new land use bylaw not being approved. I'm struggling with this one a little bit, as far as they've already had, as Ms. Fideko said, they already have a number of backlit signs, and yet Ms. Lang saying that that's part of their corporate mandate to have that type of sign there. So help me out, people, where we go with here. So there's some discussion about it, whether or not they consider it to be not backlit.
I have a quick question. Do you mind?
Mm-hmm.
If that's mandated by GM, by the corporation, then wouldn't it have made sense for them to put that in the original development plan rather than doing it on the backside of things? If that's something they have to have their building up, putting to GM to open, then that's something they should have presented to us a long time ago.
So through the chair, sometimes when applications come forward, just so that the development isn't being hung up by signage, we'll ask the developer to come back for signage after the fact. So freestanding signs are a permitted use in this district. So if they met everything in the land use bylaw and Western Heritage Design Guidelines, we would be able to approve that because it's a permitted use. It's coming to CPC mostly because they're applying for it to be backlit.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Well, I
echo
think that
what
what
Nadine-
would make I'm sorry. Can I respond to that, or should I wait?
No, go ahead, Ms. Moore.
So I think that what would make sense, obviously we don't want to discourage large businesses from coming either, because we can't follow the requirements that they have. But since they weren't asked to present the signage ideas in the original, then maybe we do look at the option of not being backlit and adding some kind of element of our Western Heritage design concept to the sign to enable them to have the sign.
Right.
I don't really think the sign's necessary, but it is if it prevents them from opening.
Right.
So through the chair, if I can add, I believe that the site plan for the original development did show some signage on there. However, the approval of that development did not include any signage for the site.
Right. So Ms. Cosby, just to clarify for me, because I don't have the full document sitting in front of me. So the decision point today is whether or not we approve a backlit sign. That is what's sitting in front of CPC today.
That's correct. It's a backlit freestanding sign. That is the application coming to CPC for approval.
Okay. So if there is any other discussion, then we will need a motion from someone to either approve or to do option 2 to not approve, or option 3 to make another recommendation. So we will need a someone to put a motion on the floor?
I can put a motion on the floor.
Ms. Fideko?
I would be in favor of option 3. Number 1, that the sign is not backlit, that they can have a freestanding sign. But I do also want to make sure that there are elements of Western heritage design. It doesn't have to be a lot, and I understand this is an evolving discussion and there are still things yet to come. But when there's no elements of that does concern me. I just think that this is a massive gateway. And I want to make sure that we aren't setting a precedence right now to say, well, you know, it's okay if this one did it, but, you know, then 3 months from now, we're hit by somebody else and then we have rules all in place. If we have those standards, and we already do, it doesn't mean that they aren't going to be further tweaked, but we already have standards in place that we're just saying there's none of them. Let's make sure that we have some standards in place. I'm fine with a freestanding sign. It's not that, so that they can still identify themselves and open. I'm just not in favor of being backlit in an area which will be seen by residents on the opposite side. And you're right. You know, would I be bothered? Maybe not, but it's all the other people that we have to think about down the road.
Okay, so Ms. Knight, are you there? Yes. So
I'm
just to
here.
clarify, so does that fit into the legislative of option 3 to, well, because we're not approving the sign anyway, right? That's, but just whether or not it was backlit. So the motion is to not approve the backlit, and it needs to be of Western heritage design. So does that fit into option 3 or not?
Good question.
Well, I'm looking at the options. The challenge I think CPC would have with this is providing that direction is very broad. And so you're generally saying we'll have some Western heritage design features, but that could be interpreted in a multitude of ways. And so as much as I always suggest you not get too prescriptive. I think in some of this, to be honest, it's a bit of a challenge because they can have a freestanding sign. It's a permitted use on that site without the backlit. The only reason it's before CPC is because of the backlit. If I'm understanding correct.
So we may have to drop the actual design factor and just say it's approved, but there's no backlit sign.
Correct, because right now, even the Western Heritage Design guideline standards we have in place, we do have that document, but it's not a statutory enforceable document, which is why it's being pulled into the land use bylaw so that the town has that bylaw, has it incorporated into the bylaw so it can be enforced that way, the way we enforce the other features within the land use bylaw itself. So we could request they reconsider some additional, but it would be difficult for CPC to enforce because it's not tied specifically to a bylaw policy that is enforceable in that way.
Okay, so I would change that then, and I would just go option 2. I'm just not in favor of having a backlit sign. I'm fine with them having a sign, just not backlit.
Right, so you are changing or retracting?
No, I mean, it wasn't ever voted on, right? So I mean,
yeah, you're
I think I can just retract and then put option 2 on the table that I'm just not in favor of backlit sign. And I know that we have to give the reasons as to why. Too close to residential area. I don't believe it's going to be, I guess, like a selling feature for them to sell vehicles. They already have a number of backlit signs already on the building itself. And if anybody else wants to throw some out there, go ahead. But I guess those would be my reasons to start.
And Ms. Knight, are we within our rights to say, and it's not in alignment with what we see as future direction with Western Heritage guidelines along major travel routes?
I would caution you against that, Madam Chair, because quoting future possibilities, you have to work within the documents, the planning documents you have as this is before you. I think that the rationale that was provided by Councillor Fideko would be sufficient for that they have been provided backlit signage through the planning commission already for this site, and you feel it would interfere with the residents across the road, I think that would be sufficient for this one.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other further discussion before we vote? Okay, anybody? Okay, so the vote is option 2 to refuse the development permit for a backlit sign. All in favor? 2, 3, okay, and opposed? We have 2 opposed. Mr. Nagel, are you opposed? You're opposed. So we have 3 and 3. And so under those circumstances, I vote Ms. Knight.
You should always be voting, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I'm against. So it's a 4-3 split.
You're against refusing the,
No, I am for refusing. So maybe I don't have that right. So, okay, so who is for the option? Can we redo
option
that, please?
2.
For option 2 is 1, 2, 3,
And yourself.
4. Yes, so there's 4 for option 2 and 3 against. Okay. Okay, so thank you, Ms. Cosby. So the next one is DP 2020-036 for signage. And is that also you, Ms. Cosby? Who's presenting?
It's Danica. Danica is presenting.
Oh, you're muted, Danica.
Sorry, I was that too.
Okay.
All right. Make sure I'm on the right one. Okay. I have to turn that one off here. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so this report is, I'm presenting the report for DP 2020-036 for a digital sign. Planning has received an application to replace the sign area in the existing freestanding sign located at 202 Fifth Avenue West, Lot 5, Block 1, Plan 9910929. The purpose and intent of the shopping center district is to provide for a range of commercial, entertainment, and professional office development in a comprehensively planned shopping center environment. The existing freestanding backlit sign was approved in 2005 by DP 2005-162. The applicant is now looking to replace the sign area with a new design that includes a reader message board along the bottom portion of the sign, shown on the right. There are no changes to the actual sign structure with regards to the height or sign area. The digital signs under section 3753 shall be considered as a discretionary use within the overlay zones and shall only be allowed in freestanding signs. The subject property is within the overlay zone. The site plan before you shows the location of the freestanding sign in relation to the site. The application adheres to the regulations set out for digital signs as per section 3753. The digital component regarding colored messaging and brightness for digital signs have been added in the recommended conditions. The land use bylaw states that digital signs shall only be permitted on new sign structures. Retrofitting of existing signs shall not be permitted unless all regulations, including the design guidelines, can be achieved. The addition of the stonework along the bottom portion of the sign has been added to meet the suggested material list for signage. The existing wooden columns, poles, and the top of sign will remain the neutral color, meeting the LUB and the Western Heritage Design Guidelines. The redesign of the sign area will require that it meets the maximum 6,000 lumens and it be reduced to 50% between the hours of 2200 and 0600. The applicant is aware of this, and the standard condition has been noted on the recommended conditions. Administration is in support of replacing the existing sign area for the following reasons. The freestanding sign is permitted and meets the regulations in section 37.5.7. The backlit component of the sign meets the regulations in section 37.5.11, and the digital sign component meets the regulations in section 37.5.3. Therefore, we are recommending option 1 that Cochrane Planning Commission approve the development permit 2020037 for a digital sign at 202 Fifth Avenue West, subject to the following conditions in your report. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Crosby. Okay. Any comments, questions, or concerns with respect to this development application?
I have some questions.
Okay, Mr. Nagel?
So this, just the bottom portion would be digital, and then the upper half would be backlit. Is that what, is am I understanding the application correctly?
Yes, so through the chair, the McDonald's, the McCafe, and the drive-through will all be backlit, and it's just that bottom portion of that sign that will be digital.
I guess this is kind of a whole new design discussion for the planning committee. We've spent so much time discussing backlit signs. Now we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna approach digital signs. Just because I imagine once McDonald's does this, some other big franchises do it, more and more people are gonna wanna do it. So I'm supportive of this one-off, but the idea of digital signs all through Main Street, I'm not entirely sure. So I guess I don't really know where I land. I'll just leave it to everybody else. I am cautiously supportive, I suppose, would be my position.
So if I can add through the chair, digital signs actually have a setback. I think it's 75 meters between each digital sign. So, you know, there would be some restrictions on future development for some digital signs for sure.
And I might just add, Madam Chair, that the Planning Commission does not actually set precedent by approving one sign. So despite the fact that we do have at times developers or builders coming forward saying the Planning Commission approves something very similar to this, each thing should be looked at as their own independent application, and approving this does not then by default require the Planning Commission to approve anything similar in the future.
Yeah, and if I could respond, I know we don't set legal precedent. It's just like a matter of fairness. I have a hard time getting behind something if we know we're only going to let 1 or 2 businesses do it, especially like one of the world's largest chains, and then we're going to tell the little mom and pop shops that they can't do it. That's where I'm at. But yeah, I know it's not a legal precedent.
Thank you, Mr. Nagel and Ms. Knight. Ms. Crosby, I have a question. What is the purpose and the advantage of a digital sign? So just, so does a digital sign mean that it has different messages at different times? Is that what that means? So
Yeah.
just educate me as to what it means.
Sure, it's a message reader board that they will be putting you know, information on that section. The land use bylaw says that it has to be a minimum of 3-second intervals that they you know, that advertising and stuff can go on there, but basically it's a reader board.
Okay. So, and again, just to clarify, so the M that's on the left-hand side picture with the drive-through is currently not backlit, and the proposed of the development application is for the whole thing to be backlit?
No, so the backlits, the sign currently right now as it stands is backlit. That was approved in 2005. So the modifications that they want to make to the sign is the existing sign area is not changing. They're looking just to modify that sign area that has a digital reader board portion on the bottom of that. And that the top 3 portions, like the McDonald's emblem, the logo, the McCafe, and the drive-through will all be backlit. So in that, it will need to comply with the new regulations of the land use bylaw, which is the maximum lumens of 6,000, and that they'll be required to be reduced in half from 2,200 to 600 hours.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Fedeko?
I guess, yeah, I'm in support of this because I mean, the way that I look at it, I mean, digital signs have been, they've been a part of our world for a while now, right? And I know that they have to be set back a certain distance. They also have to be, I believe, there has to be an owner component to it. You can't just flop one up on any sort of parcel that you want, right? So I'm in support of this one. I think that if anybody else was going to bring forward an application for a digital sign, they probably would. And I understand that this is probably more in, the more concern is in the design factor than it is in the actual digital part. So I'm in support of letting this one go.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I did have one question, Ms. Cosby. On the first one, you said that this is no biggers, and I thought that I had seen 11.6 say on one height and 13 something on the other, but I just want to verify. Yeah, if you go, sorry, go back to that screen that you were just at. So this one says 11.4, the one on the left, and the one on the right says 13.6, I think is that just?
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, you're looking at the overall dimensions, including the brackets, is 13.4 something, but 11.4 is sign edge to sign edge, the same as 11.4.5. I think it says sign edge to sign edge. So that you're measuring two different things. Do you see the number below the 13 foot 4 inches you referred to? Sorry, yes. I should not be answering.
No, that's okay. So through the chair, this 11.4 is basically from edge to edge, and that's the brackets. Where this one here, sorry, I'm like, if I can look at that, is 13.4 is basically, I believe, so the 11.4 is the sign area from basically edge to edge, where the 13.4 is right from the bracket. So it would be from this point to this point. That's the 13.4.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other questions or comments? Okay. So at this point, is someone prepared to bring forward a motion? Mr. Balmer? You need to unmute yourself and bring forward. There you go.
So I move we adopt option 1. We accept the digital sign at this location with the listed conditions.
Okay, so we have option 1 on the floor. Any further discussion, questions, comments? No, there seems to be not. Okay, therefore we'll move forward with the vote for option 1. All in favor? Mr. Nagel, we can't see you. Oh, you're over there. You're in 2 places. Okay, all in favor? Yes, it is carried and it's unanimous. Ms. Fitzpatrick. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cosby. Okay, and moving on, the next development permit is 2020-051. Oh, for signage at 11 River Heights Drive.
Yes, more signage for everybody. Okay. So good evening, everybody. This evening, I will be presenting development permit 2020-051 for your consideration. So this application is for 6 fascia signs, 1 backlit freestanding sign, and 1 directional freestanding sign for a convenience store and gas bar located at 11 River Heights Drive. The application is before you this evening because backlit signage is a discretionary use in the subject district, and because there is a variance required to allow 2 freestanding signs on this site. So the subject property is highlighted in yellow on this map and is located along River Heights Drive. It is located in the highway commercial district where freestanding and fascia signs are permitted uses and backlit signs are a discretionary use. The surrounding land uses are primarily highway commercial and public service, with some residential urban reserve located to the north and undeveloped R2 lands to the northeast. So the application was reviewed against our land use bylaw for signage, and I will go through each sign type's conformance with those regulations, beginning with the freestanding signs. So both the backlit and directional freestanding signs meet all regulations except for the number of freestanding signs on site. As previously noted, this application does require a variance to the maximum number of signs. The bylaw specifies a maximum of 1 freestanding sign, and this application is proposing 2 resulting in a 100% variance. So the proposed variance was determined to be acceptable by administration due to the small scale, location, and purpose of the second freestanding sign. Just note that this image on the screen is not to scale. This one, the car wash sign, is quite a bit smaller. So the car wash sign is intended to be perceptible to vehicles on the site and to direct internal vehicle traffic, not to be perceptible to vehicle traffic on River Heights Drive or adjacent properties. Because of these factors, it was determined that the addition of a second freestanding sign in this case would not have adverse impacts on adjacent properties or the surrounding neighborhood. So now moving on to the backlit sign component. So that freestanding sign will also need to meet all of the backlit sign regulations. The sign does have a maximum emittance of 6,000 lumens and will be dimmed in half at night. The backlit feature is focused at the top of the sign and is small in area. So it was determined that there would not be a significant glare directed onto the roadway or adjacent properties. The sign is not in direct proximity to any residential development or next to any adjacent buildings and is oriented towards River Heights Drive with no light being directed upwards. There are no other backlit signs on the property. The only other sign lighting proposed is by small hooded LED lights on the freestanding sign and gooseneck lighting on 2 of the fascia signs. So for these reasons, including a single backlit portion on one freestanding sign was deemed to be acceptable. This is just outlining the portion of the freestanding sign that will be backlit, highlighted in yellow. So the top is made out of aluminum, so it'll only be that horse detail and the scrolls that will be backlit. And this horse insignia was included as a Western Heritage design feature, clearly. So moving on to the fascia signs, the fascia signage does meet all regulations in the bylaw, including the sign coverage and placement below the eave lines. These are the elevations of the fascia signage. So this is the front of the building, the car wash sign to the south, and then the signs on the rear. This is just a site plan showing the locations. So this is the freestanding sign along River Heights Drive, the car wash sign, and then all of the fascia signage. And just noting that the canopies, so the Esso gas bar canopy sign was included in the original development permit for the site. So in summary, the backlit signage does meet all of the regulations and is designed and located that so that it should not impact neighboring development. The small scale, intended purpose, and location of the directional freestanding sign were determined to have limited impact on adjacent development. Western Heritage is incorporated into the design, and internal bodies and external agencies were circulated and no concerns were received. So for those reasons, administration is recommending option 1, that CPC approve development permit 2020-051 for 6 fascia signs, 1 backlit freestanding sign, and 1 directional freestanding sign at 11 River Heights Drive. That is all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so thank you very much, Joelle. So I would like to open the floor to see if there's any questions or comments. And so there's a question from Ms. Lang. Joelle, can you bring back the summary for us to have a greater look at? So Ms. Lang,
Was
did you
there
have-
another summary after that?
The next slide was just the recommendation.
Yeah, sorry, I guess that was what I meant. Because it's just a lot to recall.
Sorry.
And then Morgan had a comment, I believe.
Did he? Okay. Mr. Nagel?
Thank you. I will actually just get right to the punch and wait, am I unmuted? Yes, I am unmuted. And I'll move option 1. I think it's okay to have a little bit of the extra signage in there. We've got, this is right in by the vehicles, and I think it's a good location. And also it is beyond the scope of this application, but for the record, I think that their traffic flow for the car wash is a beautiful traffic flow for future drive-throughs, if possible. But obviously, this site is pretty ideal. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, so we have a motion for option 1 to approve on the floor. Mr. Ballmer, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Again, really the only thing that was out of the ordinary for me here is they're asking for 6 fascia signs. What would be allowed on this site normally?
So the fascia signs meet all of the regulations. There's no limit to the number of fascia signs. It's just the coverage on the building face. And in this case, they were far under. So there's a maximum coverage of 20% of a building face for fascia signs.
Okay. What about the freestand or the other signs?
For the freestanding signs, there's a maximum of 1 freestanding sign when there's only 1 tenant. And in this case, there's 2 freestanding signs being proposed.
Okay. So I agree with my colleague, Councillor Nagel, but I don't agree that we need additional signage. For these reasons, I think this is a great development, but I don't know where to put the stand about signage. And I know that if they put up additional signs, they put up 2, somebody needs to have 3. It's a competition that nobody will ever win. It's self-escalating. And I think they can get all, did you have a planned view of where those signs would go? I'm trying to understand why they need to have 2 signs instead of 1. That was the one. Let me just move. I've got my viewer. There it is. Okay, you
So
got 1 there and the other sign.
This is the second one, and it's just meant to identify the car wash entrance, just to identify it from the exit, basically.
Oh, okay, so that sign is not going to be out on River Heights Drive then?
No, so there's only one.
Right. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, Ms. Moore, I believe, had a comment.
Yeah, no, I was just going to respond to Lyle that the second freestanding sign that they want is just basically a small wayfinding sign for their customers, and I think it's a good idea to avoid any confusion.
Okay, thank you. I think my only comment is I'm a little disappointed with the horse being on top of the sign being considered a token for Western Heritage. I'm quite disappointed in that. I'm just wondering whether or not we have any options. I know that the recommendations with respect to the Western Heritage Guidelines have not been ratified, but I'm just wondering if there's something we can do. I don't know. Ms. Knight, can you guide me here, please?
The Western Heritage Design Guidelines that currently exist are not a statutory document and therefore not enforceable. They are recommended when these applications are coming through the development permit process, but not something that we can mandate, which is why they are, the planning department is looking to bring them into the land use bylaw so we have the ability to mandate certain things for developments as they come forward.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would just like to state, not that it makes, you know, that I'm disappointed in that, but Ms. Federico?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's kind of what you just finished explaining to me on my end about the last one, is that there's really nothing that we can stand behind anyways, and it really is their interpretation of what Western Heritage Guidelines might look like. So I think right now, unless we're going to vote it down due to the backlit part of it, which I'm not opposed to because of the fact that they're in the right area for it.
Mhm.
I am not concerned about residents. So with that, it has my vote. And sure, do they have maybe, you know, lots of signage on the lot? Sure, but it's not gonna impact anybody. So I'm fine with how it's going forward.
Okay, thank you. I think Ms. Lang is next comment.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to make a couple comments, and Joelle, I'm going to ask you a question. This is still within residential area, current and future. So I know Toyota is going to be kind of ticked, and I know we're not setting precedent, but that sign is pretty darn close to the one that we told them they can't light up. It's just going to a different set of houses on that property in the backside of the church and whatnot. But then there is going to be houses across the street. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to make that point of that it will impact someone. But the overbroadening is, yes, like Marnie said, it's in Auto Alley and it's ridiculously bright over there already. None of this will impact anything. But my question is, I don't know if you ever looked into this, on their other location down in the West End there, do they have a lit up sign for their car wash like this little one that's proposed? I just don't see the necessity of it being lit up.
Sorry, so the car wash sign isn't lit. Is that what you're?
Yes.
The car wash sign isn't lit. It's just.
Okay. That was my only real hang up. I'm like,
yeah, sorry. No, only the pylon sign, just that very top horse is lit.
Again, there's so many things on this application. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, so are there any questions, any more questions or comments, Mr. Naco?
Yeah, I had another comment. I just want to weigh in on the horse discussion and the Western Heritage Design Guidelines. I think if this horse was the only thing that they were doing for the Western Heritage, I would say, yeah, that's not really enough. And I would say I'm disappointed. But I think by looking at their plans, they had some pretty extensive design work done to give us the nice, really Western storefront appeal. I think this is pretty unique from any other 7-Eleven anywhere else, probably in North America. And the horse is not the only consideration that they're making for this building. And I know we're discussing the signs, not this heritage design guideline stuff. I just want to raise it because I think we should be careful from being. We shouldn't be kind of like too nasty towards the developers. We're trying to make some concessions because if they heard our discussion and they see that we focused on their horses, well, that's not enough, and then didn't acknowledge everything else that they're done, I think it would almost be a slap in the face because it looks like they've made some pretty big concessions. So, and I actually like the horse and I like the design, but if there's any developers listening, I think we should just be careful in saying that we don't appreciate what they've done because I think it's good.
Okay. All righty. All right, so is there any other discussion, questions, comments? If not, I think we are ready to vote. We have option 1 on the floor to approve. So all in favor? Can we go back just so I can see people? Just a minute. Mr. Dayco has a finger up. Oh, is that an approval? Oh, okay. So Mr. Balmer, sorry, I missed it. Who's in favor? Okay, and so it is unanimous. Okay. And so the next one on the docket tonight is DP 2020-052, which is for signage at 23 Heartland Boulevard. And who's presenting?
It's also me. Sorry, I'm just bringing it up here.
Okay.
Okay, so I will also be presenting the report for Development Permit 2020-052, which is for freestanding signs. So this application is for 2 freestanding drive-through signs for an eating establishment at 23 Heartland Boulevard. The application is before you this evening because a variance is required to the total number of freestanding signs allowable on the property, as 2 have already been approved through a previous development permit application. So this is the location of the subject site. It is located within the local commercial district, and freestanding signs are a permitted use within this district. So again, the application was reviewed against our land use bylaw regulations. Both signs meet the maximum sign height and area, are located at grade to be perceived by vehicles, are 34 meters apart, and are set back more than 0.75 meters from all property lines. As noted, the sign will require a 100% variance to the maximum number of freestanding signs. So the bylaw states a maximum of 2 freestanding signs for multi-tenant developments, and 2 have already been approved on the site. So with the 2 proposed, this will bring the total to 4 freestanding signs on the site. This variance was deemed to be acceptable by administration as the small scale of the freestanding signs in relation to the development, the sign's location, and their intended purpose to direct internal vehicle traffic would have a limited impact on surrounding development and still meet the use prescribed for the land. So this is just showing the elevation of both signs. Clearly one is for the drive-through entrance and one is for the exit. This is the site plan, just showing the entrance sign here and the exit sign. And so administration has also circulated this application to internal departments and external agencies for comment, and there were no concerns regarding this application. So with all of that being said, administration is recommending option 1, that CPC approve DP 2020-052 for 2 freestanding signs at 23 Heartland Boulevard. And thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Joelle. I have 2 questions. Can you show me back on the previous slide where the 2 that were already approved were, and what is the height and size of the ones that are being requested now?
So I do have an extra. So these are the 2 signs that have already been approved. So they're both on the site frontage, one here and one here circled in red. And then you're wondering the height of the ones being proposed?
Yes.
So they are 4'9", which is 1.47 meters. So they're just meant to be perceptible to vehicles.
Okay. And can you go back to, okay.
Sorry, this one.
So where are they on the site? Can I have the full site plan?
Yep. So this is the entrance to the drive-through. So cars go through here, and then one is just located at the exit to the drive-through, which will also have a no entry sign on the other side. So just directing vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any questions or comments from TPC members?
I move that we accept option 1.
Okay, so we have no discussion. We have option on the floor. I have to ask one more time if there is any other discussion. And
There is in the comments.
okay, let me go on it. Well, there's a comment. Never mind, no comment. That's what I see in the
No
comment.
comment, sorry.
Okay, so if there is no other comments, can we go back to the main screen? And I'd like to call for the vote. So all in favor? And opposed? It is carried unanimously.
Question, Madam Chair, did we lose Carol Locke?
Pardon me?
Did we lose a member from?
We may have, yes.
Yeah.
My guess would be that her phone went dead. Would be my guess. It's not even, she's gone a bit.
Kara's no longer with us?
She seems to be not.
Okay.
Okay.
Patrice, I don't think she was on the last vote either.
No, I don't think she was
So if we
either.
want to put those as abstentions or something, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, July 15th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn. Ms. Moore? Okay. And so thank you very much. And that concludes our meeting.
See you guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks all.
Okay.
Right.